Hello and welcome to the Justice Factor. Energy Minister David Mahlobo says that government should not be reckless, but energy is central to South Africa's security and shouldn't only be treated as an economic issue. Minister Mahlobo is my one special guest today. Later on, as usual, we'll give you our winner and loser of the week. But first, Minister David Mahlobo. Welcome to the show. I have to ask you this. Yesterday, Sunday morning, I get my City Press newspaper, and it says you're going hell for leather. You are implementing, or rather, you are looking deep into nuclear energy. What's the rush?
Well, thanks, Justice, for inviting us here, and a very good evening to all your viewers at home. Well, the newspaper article yesterday, if you read, there is a disconnect between the headline and the content. The headline says that we are actually rushing ahead to conclude the nuclear plan. But if you read very quickly, the government position, we're at a stage where we want to create certainty with respect to energy policy and with respect to the path that we're choosing in terms of the plans. Therefore, I've instructed the team in the department to say, we had an opportunity to review what we call it integrated resource plan, which then will start to tell you what are the sources of energy that we're using, which is renewables and non-renewables, which include your solar, your wind, and also hydro. But on the other side, those that go to the base load, you have nuclear, you have gas, you have coal, which is your energy mix. But then we're actually starting a process to say, after those months of public consultation from October to March, why has the document not been consolidated so that we can be able to engage Cabinet and engage the broader society? Because we have to engage society to say, ultimately, this is a path that we have taken to implement the energy solutions for the immediate needs and for the future needs. That's what we're actually saying in that paper.
So what you're saying is that you're accelerating the process of concluding this process, not actually implementing nuclear yet?
We're not in the process of implementing nuclear because that plan is going to be able to tell you, in the current system, you combine the renewable sources that are there, and you combine the non-renewable sources that are there, and you start to say, how much do we have? And remember, there are other power stations that are being built into the system. And then around 26 to the year 2026, 2028, a number of our power stations that are very big are going to be decommissioning. At that time, we should have been able to have built that necessary capacity to do the issues that we say we want to do to provide energy security.
Many people would say to you, actually, Minister, it sounds like that you want cover here. You want to have a little piece of paper, or a big piece of paper saying, here is the thing that says I must build nuclear. In fact, that yourself, the President of the Republic, President Jacob Zuma, have already made up your minds, as President Jacob Zuma said on Sunday, that nuclear is the way.
Well, the issue is that when you deal with issues of nuclear or any other things, it's more about natural endowment. What do you have? This country is blessed with uranium. It's a fact.
It's also blessed with sunshine.
It's also blessed with sunshine. But the sun that is here, how big is the intensity? And the sun is not only the solution, but for particular scale, you will be in a position to use. Remember, we're also blessed with coal. But also remember, we're actually signatory to a Paris Agreement. We need to reduce emission. We don't want to be destroying this environment so that our future generations are not affected. What we will do is that for all these solutions around energy, whether is it nuclear, whether is it coal, is it gas, is it wind, is it hydro? Remember, we even don't have water here. We need to look at the hydro capability from DRC. We must answer the question, what is the pace you want to do these things? What is the scale that you want to implement these projects? And then lastly is the question of affordability. But remember, South Africans are a democratic society, very vibrant. The environmental issues must also be taken into consideration. Therefore, these sources you have, Justice, people must never think that we have endless sources that are there. How we use them using technology and how to spread them over time so that our children over 50 to 100 years, they can still be able to use these sources that we're endowed with.
But many people would say to you, that sounds fantastic, but right now, your fellow National Executive Committee member, your fellow cabinet member, a comrade of yours for a very long time, Malusi Gigaba, says there is no money to do this. And so, in fact, we shouldn't do it. Let me point you to a study by the techno-economic study by National Treasury, your own department's IPP unit, CSIR and others, which said, actually, we have enough capacity with Kusile and Medupi coming on stream in the next few years. We will be fine for a significant period of time. So what's the rush when we have enough for now? The economy is not showing any signs of growing, and we have capacity. What's the rush with nuclear?
Remember, it's not a rush for nuclear. It's a rush to create certainty in terms of our plans. But maybe let's discuss nuclear even if we want to speculate, because people want to speculate. You know, when you build a big infrastructure project like nuclear or the coal power station, you build it because at a particular point in time, someone is going to say, I need this energy option. This is how much it's going to cost me. Our own experience of our failure to plan. Remember, we have an experience of not managing big infrastructure projects. They are not coming on time. And the worst thing that they are also actually having budget overruns. If we are going to build a power station like a nuclear power station, it's going to take you very good 10 years. And if you actually don't do the work right now, by the 2028, what do you do when these big power stations, they are being decommissioned? Then there's a pressure in terms of your targets, in terms of carbon emission that will have reduced. It's not that if you build any plant right now, it's going to be alive. It's going to be alive after 10 to 15 years. And
that's something that my children, your children, are going to inherit. And they'll be sitting on massive debt. You and I will be gone with the bad decisions that we make now.
It will never be a bad decision. Remember, if you are building this thing, when you say the pace is about the time. What is going to be the investment horizon? What is going to be the function of the growth, that is the growth trajectory? But then this issue of the scale is about the demand. Who's going to be able to say, at that particular point, I have an appetite. Then I'm going to sign an uptake agreement. But then there's a question about affordability, because we must not push it to our children. The issue of affordability is only two ways. It's about the cost of electricity that you actually can need to be able to drive it in terms of prices, which is your tariffs. But then there's a cost of investment. Sometimes there are a number of options that you could use in our country, not only for a nuclear capability, even for coal, for these IPPs. There is a public-private partnerships that you could use. You can actually even use just as what we call it, you build, operate, train, and transfer, where you actually come at your own cost. You build it. When you're building it, the only thing government can do, we can only regulate it to say, how do you recoup your return in investment?
You talk about cost. Now, when you talk about cost, I refer to your own IRP from a few years ago, which showed that out of the 2, 4, 6, 7, at least of the top energy means that we can go for. There's hydro, which was the cheapest. Coal after that. Now, you've spoken about environmental issues. I'm with you there. Gas, third. Nuclear, single unit nuclear, is fourth. So in terms of cost, according to your own documents and your own numbers, actually, nuclear is not the most cost-effective if you take those issues into consideration.
It depends on how do you actually define cost. Like even in yesterday's papers, issues of cost, there are different stages around cost implication. There are cost implications for all of them at the design stage. How do you design the plant itself? Then there's a time when you're going to construct the plant. If the plant is constructed at your own cost, is actually capital intensive. But what does it do? It does secondary economies. Remember, you're buying a big steels there. We are buying a lot of cement. We are creating a lot of other economic opportunities for over a period of 10 years. But you as an investor, it hits you. But in terms of the economies and creating new towns and cities, then there's a cost around the process called operations. You know, the operations, this is where you, depending on the choice
Minister Mahlobo, I'm sorry, I'm pointing you to these numbers from your own document, which show that nuclear is not the cheapest, but that seems to be the one that you're rushing for. there are 4 bars on that graph, and number 4, the cheapest is hydro, then gas, then coal, and then nuclear.
But
taking into consideration the build and
no,
the
but
cost.
these numbers we are looking here, Justice, you can look them on a straight line. There is an input into these numbers. Is the capacity of the plant the same?
Okay, take yourself away from being the minister. Do you believe in nuclear? Should we go for it? Should we build nuclear? Do we need it?
It's not a question of believing it. It's what we have. This thing is here, and it's our endowment. And this endowment is what we're blessed with. We need to use it, and we're currently using it. And we have a history.
Have you seen the latest CSIR study which shows that renewables, for example, in terms of cost, are coming down and will be way cheaper than nuclear, for example, in 10, 15 years?
I don't want to get into a competition of lobbyists or people who have economic interest.
Yes, but the CSIR is ours. It belongs to you and me. It belongs to our government.
Ours. You know what? I work with different people. They can work in one organization. I'm leading a department where other people are specializing on renewables, others are specializing on something. And people, by their own nature, they will have a tendency to actually promote one over the other. But in South Africa, it's not a question that we are going to favor one of these sources over the other. It's a question to say, how do you use them? Are they still available as a natural endowment? What is going to be the pace and scale and affordability for all of them? If I'm going to actually start to say what are the advantages and disadvantages of each, I will not be fair as a policymaker because I will be killing other people that have aspiration in the business of coal or in the business of gas. Remember, even gas was going big bang in terms of gas to pipe, and including these other people.
I'm going to stop you there and come back to the gas question because it's one that the public is very interested in. After the break, we continue our conversation with Minister David Mahlobo.